Keith lives on the farm 8 mile east of Moweaqua. You familiar out that way?
Yeah, a little bit.
Where the big blue silo out 8 mile east, there's a big tall blue silo.
Yeah,
And a big square house. That's where I was born and raised.
How long have you lived here in Moweaqua?
Well, we lived in Decatur for a while. We moved back to Moweaqua in '64. So we've been here quite a while.
And did your family always used to live in Moweaqua before Decatur? Or?
Oh yes, I lived, born and raised on the farm out there. I could give you a little idea of the house we lived in, how it was. We had that big square white house, had no electricity, no water, no bathroom or anything. We had an old two-hole outside bathroom with a Sears Roebuck catalog for paper. And then our Saturday night baths, we had took them in a big bathtub in front of the kitchen stove with the oven door down so keep warm. And I backed up against that and I got a good scar right behind my knee where I backed into that oven door one time. That was always a Saturday night deal. We had our Saturday night baths before we go down to Prairie Home. And we go down there to Literary. And we never heard of Literary? Different ones talked on different subjects. And then we visited with all the neighbors down there and everything. We had always had a Saturday night we visited down there. And bought a few groceries that we could afford.
Did you guys own any livestock?
What?
Any livestock?
Yes, Dad and I milked 6 cows all the way through grade school. So he milked 3 and I milked 3. All the way through grade school, and then through high school we milked 16. So I never got to play sports or anything. I was always on the farm. And then he had me out in the fields. And in 1934 we had chintz bugs in the corn. They were deadly. And we would run tar lines all around the field. Just pour a little used crankcase oil or tar lines all around the field and dig a post hole about every 12, 15 feet. And those bugs would come up to that and they wouldn't cross it. And they'd come along and then drop in that post hole. So every morning we'd burn the post holes and kill the bugs. And that would work.
It did?
It was really work.
It's kind of cool. Do you have any hobbies now, or?
My hobby now is computer. That's about all I can do. I did have woodworking as a hobby, but then I had to give that up. And I repaired sewing machines, and I had to give that up because I couldn't see. So I spent a lot of time with my computer.
Isn't it amazing how far they came?
What?
Isn't it amazing how far the computers became?
Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Well, we wouldn't have thought of that in the school. We had a one-room schoolhouse. All 8 grades met there. And each grade would go up to the front and recite their lessons. And of course, us younger ones would be listening in and get pointers and listen in to what was going on. We had just one big room schoolhouse and then a little room for library and a cloakroom for the girls and the boys and then a mud room for our overshoes. And we played golf ball, dare base, handy over during noon hour.
What's handy over?
Get on both sides of the school and throw the ball across the school and play handy over. So we had that, and we had the dare base, which we'd have bases on each end, and I'd dare you to come over. And then we had fun, but then nothing to play with, but just making up games.
Where was the schoolhouse located at?
It was a quarter of a mile north of our house. It was on our property, but it was a quarter of a mile north. And I remember we had snow. We had to dig tunnels out to the barns, and school teacher couldn't get there. Sometimes Clarence Lambden was one of our school teachers. And it was times when we couldn't get school, we just didn't have school because of the snow, like they do now, but then we had much more snow then. And then, then on that day before Christmas, Dad and I harnessed a team of horses, come to Moweaqua to get coal to last us through the holidays. We knew nothing about it. But we came in, and we got in here, and so we come down to 51 there. There was a crowd of people, oh my. And we couldn't figure out what had happened. We got down there, and that's what we found was a disaster at 8:15. The methane gas had blown the whole shaft of the coal mine.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 7 and a half.
7.5.
Do you remember what it looked like? Was there like a...
It just run chills through your body to see the people working around there.
Were there any specific smells or sounds or anything?
No, everything was quiet. It was just no sound, people talking, but that was all. There was no sound or anything. And the miners from Assumption came up, and the miners from Taylorville came up to help dig down through there to get to the bodies. And many of the high school boys I was with in school had lost their fathers in the mine. So it was different. No, and I took that picture that morning, and I couldn't believe, but we stayed there probably till noon, and then we went on to Assumption to get coal, because we had to have coal to heat the house. But that's just the way we lived those days. And this huckster wagon that Trulocks, you remember the Trulock store out there?
Kinda.
Or
I've seen a lot of pictures.
yeah. Well, the Trulock store, he built one of these huckster wagons. There was little compartments where they kept everything, the candy and the sugar, everything. And we would buy groceries and trade chickens and eggs for the groceries we got. We didn't have money. We just did not have money to pay for anything. So we bartered chickens and eggs.
Did you have a car?
We had a car. We had a 28 Chevy. That's the car I learned to drive in.
So what was different about the businesses back then?
Businesses did a lot of bartering back then. We'd come in town and we'd bring eggs into town and trade for groceries or trade for welding that we had done, or feed ground. We'd have feed ground for our chickens. Kaufman's Mill did all of the grinding of the meal. And then we had a blacksmith shop in town, and clothing store. Men's suits were $3. We sold corn for 25 cents a bushel, and we bought gas for 9 cents, and it got down to 5 cents.
Sorry, I think I just figured out how to get this thing to work.
I think they can make it a little bit more simpler.
Was it just that one button that you got to hit?
They're talking about gas now will be $4 a gallon before the
That's what I heard.
summer's over.
Oh, that's
And I think I used to buy it for 9 cents a gallon.
Jeez.
it's like $105 a barrel.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be driving soon. I can pay 5 cents a gallon.
you probably won't be driving much out there.
No.
But we made out in not too bad in a depression because we had our crops and our gardens,
Mm-hmm.
and we canned, butchered hogs, and we canned all of the meat. We'd have that for the next season. And the garden, we'd gather the vegetables and can them. So we didn't suffer too much during the Depression, except we didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
There just wasn't any money to be had. And the farming implements were primitive.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't
Not like they are today.
like they are today. I go out to Rogers and get in that combine here, and I can't believe it. We had the old thrashing machine with Art Small owned the thrashing machine. He'd come around to the farms,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd put the beans in there and thrash the beans and separate them, and the wheat. And I got a good going over by Art Small when I was 16 years old. I mean, I'll never forget that. He gave me a good going over. I pitched bundles into the thrash machine, and my pitchfork stuck in the binder twine, and I pitched the fork and everything went through the thrashing machine.
Uh-oh.
And I mean, he let me have it.
Did the businesses change a lot from after the coal mine?
We're Adams's Hardware was, they had the kerosene lamps and necessary things for the farmers at that time. They didn't have all of the sidelines they have today in the hardware stores. They had just the basics for the farmers and for the people that needed it. And we had the kerosene lamps we studied by and used. I've still got my little kerosene lamp I took to bed with me every night. And the clothing stores, they could, the styles for that days, they were cheap. As I say, men's suits were $3. And you could buy a dress shirt for 25 cents. But they were really a one-person store. I mean, they didn't have a lot of clerks. They had one person in the store, and they would know what was in there and help you with that. And they would take eggs and chickens in for bartering in the stores even. We had grocery stores, the same as they have nowadays. But as I say, they just carried mostly the basics that we had to use.
What did the mine look like after the disaster?
It didn't change the looks of the mine any.
It was all below ground?
It was all below ground. They dismantled the tipple a few years later and closed the mine shaft up and just left it closed. Because there was no way they could get down there. It just completely blew the shafts clear out at 650 feet down. Because that methane gas, once light it goes.
Wasn't it from their helmets? Was that
They
what-
figure probably the spark come from one of the carbide lamps they carried.
Mhm.
Because they just had these little carbide lamps they carried strapped on their forehead, and that was the only light they had.
Yeah, we went to the Coal Mine Museum and saw 'em.
Bruce did a wonderful job on that coal mine museum. He really
It was pretty nice.
got it fixed up nice.
How long after the disaster did it take for life to get back to normal?
Well, of course we didn't have the mine, and the men had to that were left. I think there was only 4 left that worked that day, and they had to get other jobs. And Joe Ben Hibbard, you know Joe Ben Hibbard here in town, he's the last miner left. He's still living. He's 92, and he's still living. But I'd say it probably took 3 years for us to get back to normal. Because we had to go to Assumption for the coal, and it just changed everything.
Took a lot longer.
Yeah.
Where was the farthest place you traveled to as a kid?
Well, we had pretty much dirt roads to travel on. We didn't have the paved roads or anything, and they'd get pretty much ruts in and when bad weather. But we had a car all the time. We had that 28 Chevy, and my grandfather lived just down the road from us, and he had an old 24 Hubmobile. And we had the Model T that we drove out to the field, taking water to the thrashers and all out in the fields. So I learned to drive a Model T with the 3 pedals on that, same as the other. But my family was, I would say they were pretty well off because they had 320 acres of ground that was homesteaded out by my great-grandfather. He homesteaded out, and it just went on down to the families. So we owned our ground and didn't have any mortgage on them. So we got along fairly good.
What was Christmas like after that? It happened on Christmas Eve, right?
We had Christmas. We had Christmas tree. We had packages galore, just like they do now. It was a big deal for us at that time. That's about the only time we ever got anything was at Christmas. And of course we were thankful for everything we had. But we celebrated Christmas as it should be celebrated. And that was always just part of it. And then our family was all religious. We went to church on Sunday night, Wednesday night. And then we had a camp down at Cowden, Illinois. We went down, spent 10 days down there at the camp every year. Regardless of whether we had anything or not, we went to camp. We stayed in a tent. We had a tent we stayed in.
Where was that camp at? Because my dad used to live in Cowden then. We went there a lot.
It was like in the
Do you know where the park is?
Yeah.
It's right next to the park on the south side. All those cabins and tabernacle and all. So I went down there from the time I was, 3, 4 years old.
For 10 days?
For 10 days. We took our old kerosene cook stove, and we cooked our meals. And yeah, my grandfather lived in Cowden. or farmed out north of Cowden, 2 mile north of Cowden and a mile west. So we were very familiar with Cowden.
Did you attend the funerals of the victims?
No,
Your
I
family?
didn't. No, Dad wouldn't let us. We had 2 very good friends that were killed in the mine, but Dad wouldn't let us go to the funerals. You know, he said that was enough that we saw there that day. He said, I don't want you going.
So, on Christmas Eve now, do you ever remember the coal mine or anything, or?
I remember it every year. The day before Christmas, it just comes to my mind and I think about it. Because so many of the boys that I was with in school lost their fathers, and it still plays in my mind to me all the time. I can't get over it. I just remember it. Of course, we know we have to get past those things, but I drive down, every once in a while I drive back in there to the mine where it was.
What was the town like? The morale?
What?
What was the town morale like? Was it pretty down? Or?
It got bad. The people really were down. They had no money. And the widows didn't have any money, and some of them had 5 and 7 children. And there wasn't much money from the mine that they could get. So it was depressing. They went through quite an ordeal. Especially the Turpacks. I remember the Turpacks. They just couldn't get over it.
What are the Turpacks?
Turpacks, there were 7 children.
Oh. Did their father die in the mine?
Their father was killed and 1 brother.
That'd be hard.
So you take take those books with you and look through them whatever you want to.
Were those the people that? Were those the people that passed away in the mine?
That's the ones who were killed in the mine.
Maybe
54 of them.
These are the bugs, you said that with the oil?
Those were the chintz bugs that they would just completely strip the corn when they get in it. With ears, there would be no ears in the corn at all.
Did they ever get all over the house or anything, or?
No, we were fortunate. They never got into the house. But it was sure a battle to fight them.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 1 brother and a sister. My sister was older. She was my dad's first wife. And then my brother, he's 6 years younger than I am. He farms out the home place all the time.
Still helps out. Is the house still standing? Is the house still standing you grew up in?
Oh yeah. Out there where the big silo is, that's the house.
We'll probably head that way home. Probably look at it.
It was always a big square house. Big square 2-story house.
Would you remember like when Highway 51 was put in, or?
Yeah, I remember that very well. It was, It was put in about 35, 36. They put that in. No, I remember going to Decatur the first time on that highway. We thought we was in heaven, just driving on that concrete.
So smooth. When you were younger, how far south did you go? Did you ever go past Assumption, like to Payne or?
We went to Payne a few times, very few times though. But generally just Assumption as far as we went. And then of course when we went to Cowden to camp, we'd go over to 128 and down through Shelbyville that way. But we really appreciate the new roads, and I remember when they built this blacktop out east of town. Well, that was really an improvement. But now that wasn't fixed till 39, I believe it was, that they put that in.
How long were you in town for the coal mine? Like the day it happened? How long were you in town?
We were in town about half a day, till about noon, and we went on to Assumption to get coal.
Did everyone help out around the town for the coal mine?
Everyone, I'm telling you, the turnout for the help was just unbelievable. Everyone. Well, of course, the curiosity of the families were there, and then the people of town all wanted to help what they could. Wasn't really much they could do because of mine, the shaft had caved in, and they were digging, and there could only be so many digging, but they dig in shifts to dig through the mine.
So did the town like kind of rally around the families?
Oh
the
yeah,
widows?
oh they did, yes they did. They'd bring food and clothing for them. You know, it was cold. They bring warm clothing for them and food. They helped out. They really rallied around. Well, even the banker was down there most of the day. He spent most of the day down there. Oh, Mart Ayers. And no, they really rallied around the families. Some of the families couldn't speak good English. They were foreigners yet. They hadn't been around that long.
Could you pretty much do everything, like could you get everything you needed in Moweaqua?
We could get about most everything we needed, yeah. They had the clothing stores here, they had the drugstore, and the grocery stores, the bank, and of course Kaufman's mill that did all the grinding of the corn and feed for the cattle. And of course, we got a lot of stuff out at Prairie Home. They had a little store down at Prairie Home. It was a mile east of us and a mile south, just 2 miles from us. That's where we go down on Saturday nights. But we lived and got along real good, and I think we got a good education back then, even at that, with a one-room schoolhouse.
Is that where you went to church, was Prairie Home?
No, we went to church in Bethany.
Oh.
Yeah, we had our church in Bethany, so we go over there.
So how long did it take you to get to Bethany from?
Yeah, it's 8 miles of Bethany or 8 miles of Moweaqua, about And it'd take about 15, 20 minutes. That old 28 Chevy, it'd get cold in the winter time. We'd have to take blankets and cover us up with blankets. It had a heater in it, but not much of a heater.
It didn't work too well.
Didn't work too well. No.
What did you guys do in your family time then?
Well, we'd sit around at night and play checkers. And, mostly checkers and dominoes is what we played. We had a dining room table, a lamp would sit in the middle of it, and then we could get her all around the table that way. But that's the way we spent most of our time in the evenings.
Did you go all the way through high school?
I went, came in here to Moweaqua to high school, and had the 4 years at the old school. We had some rough teachers.
Did you have a Mr. Kaplinger by any chance?
No, it was long before Mr. Kaplinger. It was a Mr. Corby, which was it's Corby's father. And we had one old principal, Guy McClure. He was something else. And the mayor, I shouldn't tell this, but the mayor paid his daughter to trip him down the stairs one day. So he went flying down the stairs.
Oh, that would have been a sight.
And then we had another one that wore crepe sole shoes, and one of the boys said, "I wonder where Sneak is." He tapped him on the shoulder. He said, "I'm here right behind you." So he was always behind you. But we had some good teachers and we had some bad teachers.
Where was the old school? Where was the old high school located? Was it in the same place or?
Yeah. Yeah, we were all together. We had one boy that was a sharp one, and he told a chem teacher one day, he said, "I made nitroglycerin." And old Carl Gregory said, "You wouldn't know how to make nitroglycerin." He took the little tube and tossed it out the window. It hit the ground and it went off.
What did the chemistry say after that? The chemistry teacher.
He didn't have much to say after that, but he was, as far as I know, he's still living, but he's in Ohio. He was a head chemist for Lockheed. And he worked for Lockheed Aircraft for years.
Mm-hmm.
We had 28 graduate from high school together. It was a big class.
Our class is 87.
Yeah. Out of that 28, there's 15 of us left. Graduated in 1942, just before the war.
Do you remember much about it, the war? Do you remember much about World War II?
Very much. Too much.
Did you fight?
I was in the infantry. I hit D-Day H-hour +2. Hit the beaches of France. I was lucky. I lost 8 boys out of my squad of 12. I went clear through it and never had a scratch. But I was one of the lucky ones. That is the hardest thing for me to talk about. Yeah, I was in the 1st Army Infantry, and then after we got in, I joined the 104th Timberwolves and went up through Cologne and Battle of the Bulge and on into Halle, Germany. In 43, 44, 45.
What was your occupation?
I was
in
an
Moweaqua?
accountant. You know, I did accounting work with General Tire. I was an accountant for General Tire Company.
In Moweaqua?
What?
In Moweaqua?
No indicator.
Oh.
And then they sold out to Neil Tire. And I worked for Neil Tire for 4 years, I think, before I retired. No, I've had a good life. I've enjoyed it. Never really done all right. Lost my wife last year after 59 years and 10 months we've been married.
My grandparents just had their 50th anniversary this year.
Yeah. Yeah, we had almost 60 years. That's her picture there on that book.
So when did you two get married?
What?
What year did you get married in?
1947.
Did she live around here too, or?
No, she was in Kentucky. I put shoes on her and brought her to Illinois.
So she was definitely not from here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she was in Kentucky. She was one of 6 children. So we've had a good life. Had the 2 children, Cindy Seifert and Terry Cox. Terry lives down in the old bowling house. You know, the one with the Spanish scallops on
Yeah.
the front? Yeah, that's where he lives. That's my son. And he works for truck parts, Decatur.
McLeod?
Midway truck parts. Sells to farmers, truckers all the way down to Effingham.
Did you get that recorder to work?
Yeah, I got it. Finally. That seemed to work. Well, I think that's all the questions we have.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I'd glad to help you out if I can. If it helped any, I don't know.
It definitely helped. Do you have anything else
But
you
I'm telling you that shucking corn was one of the worst jobs I think I ever had. Tearing back the husk, I had I still got it in my office, a pick across your hand that you tear the shucks with and then throw it in the wagon. And that team I had would know whether I was hitting the back of the wagon or the front. And when I get up to where they were hitting the front of the wagon, they would pull up. You never have to say anything to them. They would pull up about the length of the wagon. They had been so trained that they could do that.
Horses are.
Yeah, they were work horses. They were draft horses. We had 6 horses at all times, plus a quarter horse I rode. Old Waltz, Dad did have a horse for me to ride, and I rode him. But he had 6 horses, and his dad had 8 down on the other farm, just down the way. And it'd take 3 horses to the bean drill. To drill beans, it'd take 3 horses. And it was hard to drive with 3 horses. But I curried horses and, curried their mane and everything till they looked nice. Harness them. Oh, I loved the horses.
How long would it take to shuck the corn?
Oh, it generally take about a month to get the corn all shucked.
Doesn't sound fun. I mean, my family, we pick sweet corn, but
yeah.
It takes a couple hours.
Yeah. No, I tell you, it's a different world today. But we had a hired hand that we come in to help pick corn. And bring it into the corn crib and then have to shovel it off of the wagon into the corn crib. There was a lot of work to the farmer those days. There was an awfully lot of work. And the boys all went to school, or all farm boys, and they all had to help at home. So we didn't have much time in school time. We got out of school, we had to head home to get work.
How many acres did you say you had? How many acres did you have?
We had 120.
You had a big garden?
And my dad made a living on 120 acres all his life. That's all he had. Roger says, how could you live on 120 acres? Of course, this machine shed right straight half-mile out here is Roger. That's my son-in-law's farm. And farming equipment out there.
Did you have any pets, just like cats and dogs?
We had one little dog that was a rat terrier, and that's all we had. Cats, we didn't want. We didn't have any use for cats around.
Was the rat terrier, was it for mice or?
Yeah, a rat terrier would he'd kick the mice out of the barn.
What did you grow in the garden? In your garden, did you grow?
Just about any vegetable you could think of. We had sweet corn and beans, wax beans, butter beans, and carrots, broccoli, just the whole produce. And then we canned all of it. We had racks in the basement, just cans after cans, probably 400 cans, quart jars. And we canned, that's what we had to eat off of during the winter. And we canned our meat. We even canned our meat.
Do you remember what winters were like? Because I remember my dad telling stories about winters being bad. Do you?
About what?
About winters. Were they like?
The bad winters,
Mhm.
oh yeah. No, we get up in the morning and Dad hollers, say, Hubert, get out here, you got a shovel. And I couldn't, I was sleeping upstairs and in the cold. We didn't have any heat in the upstairs of our house. And get out there and so it'd be that deep, you have to shovel to the barn in order to get out there. You know, we had drifts. We walked over the fences to go to school.
The other questions we had?
Yeah, I think that's all of them. Thanks again for your time.
Yeah, I'm glad I could help. Or hope I could help.
Oh. Did you have anything more to say, or
Huh?
did you have anything more to say, or?
Any other stories or anything else to add?
No, not that I know of.
Pretty much covered.
Well, here's a card just in case you need, if you think of anything else. That's the school's
Yeah.
number, and we'll just like call back and study or
Yeah.
something.
Okay, I was kind of lyric what I could do or what I could think of when